Well, tonight is the last chapter of Leviticus. So Leviticus 27. And if you if you see this, you're like, why is this here? Because 26 kind of wound up Leviticus as far as the laws. Moses came back in and he spoke, and they gave the blessings and the curses again, gave all these things. And now we go to this particular portion. It's regarding things given to God. And you have to remember how the Bible was written. Okay, it was written in the Old Testament with Hebrew, and Hebrew has no vowels. They write it without vowels, is the way I understand it, and no punctuation. So when you translate something over from Hebrew, like they did, to get it to, like we said, the Septuagint, like Jimmy was talking about, get it into the Greek so that people could read it, or then later on get it into Latin, get it into English for us. Some of these things, I think it was, I don't remember now if it's King James, I think it's one before that. Maybe the Great Bible. Somewhere in there, they divided it up into chapters, because they didn't even have chapters. It's just this is the book of Isaiah. Boom, all 7 rolls, or whatever it was, here's all of Isaiah. I don't know how they kept track of it. They just say, turn to page, scroll 54 on halfway through it. Or, I don't know how they did it, but they had a different way of keeping track of it. But in today's society, and when they translated it, sometimes they tried the best way they could. There's both translations and transliterations. Okay, transliteration is trying to go word for word what the Greek is. Sometimes that doesn't make sense to us because there's not the Greek word that is there, or the Hebrew word, vice versa, whichever it is in the Old or New Testament. I guess the way to make fun of us, when I learned French, you say, what would we say if you was hungry in English? I'm hungry. To a Frenchman, you're saying, your name's Hungry? That don't sound right. It goes, hungry I am. It's a little different. It's different the way it is.
Greek and Spanish are a whole lot like
that. Yeah. And so it's kind of, it can be mixed up a little bit, and they try to set it the way it sounds and works good. So I'm just saying that this is put in. It almost looks like it was tacked on the end because it was in this big book, and they couldn't find the right place for it. I mean, that's kind of the way. It's important. They didn't leave it out.
And it didn't write for them. They wrote backwards.
Well, it didn't really fit where some of these other things were. And you'll see here as we go through. Verse 1, and the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, When a man shall make a singular vow, the persons shall be for the Lord by thy estimation. Now, as we get into this, it's talking about things given to God. So there's going to be different things as we go through this chapter that you say, I'm going to give this to God. Can be a person, can be an animal, can be a piece of land, can be building, or whatever. And it's kind of, to me, like the lawyer's looking for a way to get out. You can give that to God, but then you can buy it back. But you have to buy it back at 20% increase or 20% interest. And that's what it is. It's kind of weird. Different than, it's not unlike some of the other things that we've seen in there where if somebody gets stolen and you steal a sheep, steal a goat, whatever, you have to give a goat back and then you have to give some more on top of it. So in all this, it says a vow is a promise made to God voluntarily and not in obedience to any divine requirement. So all these that we've had, the first 20, and that may be what separates this out. The first 26 were commandments from God. This is what you need to do. Is either to the priests or to the people or whichever one, and the priests had to pass it down, but it applied to certain people. This is particular one that's saying if somebody wants to make a vow in addition to what I've already told you, okay, if you want to do something in addition to that, here's the way it's going to happen. So if we want to think about this in our day and time, if you say, okay, and this isn't even a good example, but it's like if you pay tithes, you pay your 10%, and if you want to give more, okay, you can give more than 10%. You don't have to call it your tithe. You can give it this, you can give it that, you can give whatever, or anything else you can think of. But this is the way people made an effort to show God that I am trying to show you that I'm committed to this. And so, and I'm not really sure why this came into being as far as, why it's here. I tried to look up a little bit, but it's just mainly from what was in here I could see. It says here in verse, or the double I, for example, a man from the tribe of Judah in a time of distress, out of gratitude or out of a sense of calling, might want to consecrate his son to the Lord. He could not give his son to the service of the tabernacle because he wasn't a priestly family. So to consecrate his son, he would follow the procedures in the next verses, okay, that we're going to go through. So, and it does say that the firstborn's dedicated to God, first fruits dedicated to God, all those things, and we'll review a little bit that in just a minute. Also says, according to Judges and 1 Samuel, it was possible for a person to dedicate another human being to God, just like I said before, his son. It was expected that the person so dedicated would serve in the sanctuary, but this passage shows that such a person could be set free by the payment of money. And we don't see that yet. They kind of put that out of place. I think it should be down in a few minutes. We'll see that. So if you feel like it, all the part of the temple, not the tabernacle, and all dealing with all that, they had to be of the tribe of Levites to be associated with that, or of the Aaron, if they were a quote priest, they had to be of Aaron. When a man consecrates by a vow certain persons to the Lord, the beauty of these commands is that the one making the vow consecration something definite to do. The vow of consecration was therefore far more than mere words. It had a definite action associated with it and prevented people from making empty vows to God. Sometimes we say, oh God, if you'll get me out of this, some people say that, this mess, I'll do this and this and this for you. Well, God's not in a bargaining, he's not going to bargain with you. But if you say that, you better do it, because if you're actually saying that as a vow to God, you've got to keep that vow. Now, that's in the Old Testament. That's this part that we see. And it's in the next part on the top of the page, says, it was not a sin to refrain from making a vow, but once a vow was made, it had to be kept. But substitutions could be made. And it was this possibility of making a substitution that distinguished the vow from the sacrificial offering made on the altar. So, as we see, there were all these before us, the 26 chapters before us, these are sacrifices that was given to God. And so they would come up and give their goat or sheep or whatever it was to them for the sacrifice, for the particular offering, whether it's a burnt offering, a sin offering, the grain offering meal, all that. But here, this is, if you want to do something else, you can make a vow. you can vow, I'm going to give, my next cow that is born or whatever. Okay, verse 3 through 7. Are there?
And thy estimation shall be of the male from 20 years old, even unto 60 years old. Even thy estimation shall be 50 shekels of silver, after the shekel of the sanctuary. And if it be a female, then thy estimation shall be 30 shekels. And if it be from 5 years old unto 20 years old, then thy estimation shall be of the male 20 shekels, and for the female 10 shekels. And if it be from a month old even to 5 years old, then thy estimation shall be of the male 5 shekels of silver, and for the female thy estimation shall be 3 shekels of silver. And if it be from 60 years old and above, if it be a male, then thy estimation shall be 15 shekels, and for the female 10 shekels.
Okay. Now this is the redeeming part. If somebody vows a vow, then this is the redemption part of it. Okay, I'm giving myself to God, and I'm redeeming, or my son, or whatever, and I'm redeeming him back. I want to take him back. Before that, I will give you this amount of money. And these particular ones was based on their age. Why do you think it's based on their age? Look at the age brackets. 20 to 59 is worth the most.
What's your most productive?
That's the best years. You've got a young guy, even all the way to 59. Those are the labor years, if you want to speak it like that. They're going to give you the most labor out of that, whether it's male or female, either one. They can do the most work. If they're in good health, they'll do that work. And from there on, if you're over 60, yeah, you're not going to be able to carry on as well as you could. I found that out in the last couple of years. I don't work as long as I used to work. I can't. I just do one of those things. And of course, the young children, 5 to 19, they're a little bit better than the 60-year-olds. And that seems a little odd, but
Especially for a 5-year-old.
Well, 5, yes, but it gives an age 5 to 19. Now you got to understand, they use these kids. If you want to say slave labor, but I could remember my dad. He was telling me his dad died when he was like 7, I think it was. Well, that would have been in 29, right in the middle, or right in the start of the Depression, and had 2 boys, twin boys. Grandma did, and she was out there. They had a farm that we still have in the family, but you got 2 young boys, and that's it. And the mom to work it. She's trying to keep track of the boys. They sharecropped is what they did. They offered people to come out. If you want to work on, either they worked on their land, or you come work out on their land. When I look at our land now out there, it's real wooded and stuff. I don't see how, of course, trees grow pretty fast, 80 years, 70, 80 years. But they can work, and they did work, sharecropping. They would help them get in the turnips and help them get in the whatever it was. Darla's mom's told me, yeah, we picked cotton till every one of the kids picked cotton. And when I worked with Grandpa, I sold his produce, what he got, but also I went out and helped him either plant them, potatoes and all that, watermelons, or we'd go out and pick up the potatoes. He'd roll over it with the tractor and unfurl them, and we'd dig through there and put them in our sack and bring them up. So that's not uncommon. And I was young, I was probably 12, 13 years old when I did that. So today that'd be child labor. I mean, it'd be, everybody'd be on it. But that's the way they did back then. You had to survive. And even young kids. I mean, I worked, as younger than that, I probably was working the fruit stand for Grandpa up there because we lived in town. So you can kind of see the difference between the ages is why the difference there.
So Samuel's mom,
Yeah,
she could have come back and paid whatever was the
exactly,
accepted
exactly.
price.
She could have set that price, and that, the redemption price from him, it would have been 0 to 4, it'd just been 5 shekels. But she actually dedicated him
Yes.
to God and gave him to him. So that's a very good example. Verse 8, Iris.
But if he be poorer than the estimation, then he shall present himself before the priest, and the priest shall value him according to his ability. That vow shall the priest value him.
Okay, once again, we saw this several times in Leviticus, that it makes it available for everyone. If you can't afford a cow, okay, then a sheep. If you can't afford a sheep, then you get 2 doves or whatever, and all these different things. So here it says if you're poor, you don't have to pay this amount that's been set. You go to the priest, and the priest will say, yeah, I know you come from that family, you've had a hard life. Okay, you're worth two shekels. And if they had the 2 shekels or whatever they vowed, then they'd pay it. So it gave them an option also. It tried to level the field for everybody. And the priests were the ones that, as we said, they're the ones that kind of set this. Whatever it was, whatever the value was, they would set it. And they tried to be fair. 9 through 13, Bertha?
And if be a beast for of men to bring an offering unto the Lord, all that any man giveth of such unto the Lord shall be holy. He shall not after it, nor change it, a good for a bad, or a bad for a good. And if he shall at all change beast for beast, then it and the exchange thereof shall be holy. And if it be any unclean beast of which they do not offer a sacrifice unto the Lord, then he shall present the beast before the priest. And the priest shall value it, whether it be good or bad, as thou valued it. Who art the priest, so shall it be. But if he will at all redeem it, then he shall add a 5th part thereof unto thy estimation.
Okay. So you kind of see in there, if they want to give in addition to what the law says, they can give an additional amount.
Who are they? I mean, they're dedicating them to the Lord.
Right.
Who gets the benefit from this?
The priests. The Levitical.
Priesthood. Okay.
Yeah, the Levitical people are the ones that get it. So, and if the money's paid, then it goes in the tabernacle treasury, okay, to take care of it. If it's not money paid, then if it's another lamb to be slaughtered, okay, we can slaughter it. And we'll have it there. We don't do it now, but if somebody else doesn't have one, okay, that'll take the place of it. Mine. If it's an unclean beast, like it says here, if a guy wants to give a donkey, which is unclean, then they can use that donkey to haul some of the stuff of the tabernacle, or haul water, or whatever the priests want to use it for, they can use it. But if the guy said, oh, that's my prize one though, I dedicate it to you and it's a vow, so you give me an estimate of what's worth. And he says $100. So he says, okay, I have to give you $120 because it's 20% more. And then it's good. It's an effort to show that you're doing something for God. Okay? And in that mode, to us it seems kind of odd. Because it would be, if we want to say it, free will offerings. If we want to say it in what we would think of it. This particular one is of animals, though, that it's talking about. So yeah, it's the priests that, and it's to go along to help the priests. The priests don't have any land of their own. They don't have anything. Everything is given to them for the clothing that they had to wear, for the priestly duties, and then for the other duties, they had to go out and somehow bargain and get for clothes, shoes, all this stuff that they had.
Do they actually get to keep the land if it was valued to them?
We'll get to it in just a little bit.
Oh.
Okay. It's a little different for that for land. Verse 14, Harold, you want to read that? 14:15.
And when a man shall sanctify his house to be holy unto the Lord, then the priest shall estimate it, whether it be good or bad, as the priest shall estimate it, so shall it stand. And if he that is sanctified, it will redeem his house, then he shall add the fifth part of the money of thy estimation unto it, and it shall be his.
Okay. It says, with a house, as in the case with an unclean animal, if a man wanted to consecrate by a vow the house to the Lord, while still using it, the priest had to set a value on the house. After the value of the home was estimated, then, of course, another 20% was added. That total was given to the tabernacle treasury, and the vow was considered fulfilled. See, we don't have anything like that, really. I mean, I can't see anything other than, like I've said, offerings, our time that we give here or whatever. So it's a little bit odd. I mean, to me, may not be to you. Maybe you understand it completely, but
like you said, what benefit did a house give them? You know what I'm saying? Like if they rented it, I can see them getting the rent.
Yeah.
I mean the tabernacle getting the rent.
Right.
But if the person lived in it, all it's doing is just.
Well, it gives them money. That's what he has to redeem it. If he's going to live in it, he has to redeem it. Okay. So it's an offering. It's giving something to God and showing the people and God. I mean this, that this is what I want to give. It's an addition to serving God. Now, they didn't have to do this. That's why I call it kind of a free will type offering.
It was sort of like the early church there when they decided to have everything in common. God didn't tell them to do that.
No, they just
did.
But
when they agreed together to do that, then they had to be truthful about it.
Yes, yeah, they did. It's for the purpose. It was trying to keep them going. One of the things that keep bringing in the chosen, but the chosen in season 3, it goes into how did the ministry, they went everywhere. Well, you had 12 people plus others, up to 70 at one time, and we saw I have to remember now if it's in season 3 or not, but you got a lot of people behind them. How do you feed these people? How do you keep track? All these things. So they introduced something into there that Mary Magdalene and some of the others, James and John's dad, they go off the side and say, all this is going to be for the ministry. We're gonna. It's an olive grove. He buys an olive grove, Zebedee does, and they're going to try to raise olives, and that's going to keep the ministry going. So it's kind of like that a little bit, I guess. They're trying, just like the New Testament, like I said. They didn't have a whole lot of money. They fairly poor, most of them, fishermen. So they had some people that were in there. We know Nicodemus may have been in there. We know Josephus, Joseph of Arimathea was there, and they probably were the richest ones they had. So this is just another way of providing something for the priests, for the ministry. That's right. 16 through 21. I'll read that for us, Janet.
And if a man shall sanctify unto the Lord some part of the field of his possession, then my estimation shall be according to the seed thereof. And homer of barley seed shall be valued at 50 shekels of silver. If he sanctify his field from the year of Jubilee, according to thy estimation it shall stand. But if he sanctify his field after the Jubilee, then the priest shall reckon unto him the money according to the years that remain, even unto the year of the Jubilee, and it shall be abated from thy estimation. And if he that sanctified the field will in any wise redeem it, then he shall add the fifth part of the money of thy estimation unto it, and it shall be assured to him. And if he will not redeem the field, or if he have sold the field to another man, it shall not be redeemed any more. But the field, when it goeth out in the Jubilee, shall be holy unto the Lord, as a field devoted. The possession thereof shall be the priest's.
Okay, so that answers your question when you're talking about the land. If somebody wants to give the land to them and not redeem it, then it becomes a priest. Okay, after the during the Jubilee. And these are all going back to the time. One thing I didn't mention was the redeeming of people. The amount of money also that is set, that estimate is how much a man should be able to make in a year. I think it was the 50 shekels, or I think that's what the time frame was up there. Maybe it's a month. I have to go back and read it again now.
What is a shekel? I mean, how much?
A shekel today?
Equivalent today.
Okay, let me see here. 50 shekels of silver, blah, blah, blah. The normal 25-year-old man could do more labor. Oh, that's on behalf of the 5-year baby. And look real quick. I don't know. My phone's back there. I'll tell you here in a couple weeks.
It's a real small amount.
Yeah, it's a small amount.
It's not near the value of our money now.
Well, of course not. Denarius, they talk about the denarius when they're, the workers out, or the farmers out getting people for his field. That's a penny. That's what I've been told. That's about what we would consider a penny a day, what they would work. So I don't know how many denarius it takes to make a shekel. But that's, yeah, if you can look it up on your phone, you can see. But it's I think it said in there, I was trying to read where it was, how much.
And if I'm taking this right, they adjusted it, say if it was only 2 years till Jubilee, then that was taken into consideration instead of the full 7 years.
Right.
On the value of the land.
Right. If you did it at Jubilee, it's going to be worth 50 years worth. If you did it when it's Jubilee, like you said, 5 years or whatever, then it's worth a lot less. Because in Jubilee, it goes back to the owner anyway, except if it was not redeemed. That's
it says, how much is a nickel shekel worth today?
Mm-hmm.
The Roman denarius was about 3.4 grams of silver.
Okay.
And so half the shekel would be worth about 2 days of labor in the vineyard, comparing this with the labor wages in agriculture is today. I would estimate the half of a shekel contribution to half about 50.75 USD. That's about it.
Yeah.
About 0.27 is about worth.
Yep.
A quarter, a little over a quarter.
It ain't very much.
No, it's not a lot. Of course, and it's just like
It's probably quite a bit back then.
it was.
Yeah.
It's like, I can remember going when my first job was at a laundromat. Okay, I worked two or 3 hours a night, like 2 or 3 nights a week, and my 2-week pay, take-home pay, was $2.50. I worked at a laundromat for like 3 times a week, I think it was, and I just cleaned the machines and swept up at night and made change for people as they came in. But I think it was $2.50 is what he paid me for that 2 weeks. Well, I was happy as a lark because I could go for $1. I could go next door to Frank's and I'd get a whole meal, for $1. I'd get a hamburger and fries and a drink. Of course, that's a whole week work. So I didn't do that very often, but
I paid 50 cents a night.
yeah, that's
brother, I think, Brother
that
Harris,
yes?
Edward Harris's dad, I pastored him at Bartlesville.
Oh, wow.
I was
They
11 years
were
old.
talking one time about, we were talking, I said, I remember when gas was 18 cents a gallon, and you could get a Coke for 7 cents, one of those little small bottle of Coke
Yeah.
for 7 cents. And he said, I remember when you could get a bowl of chili and some crackers for a nickel.
Wow.
And I said, how often did you eat out? And he said, not very often.
That's right. Not very often, that's
Nickel was
right.
very valuable.
Well, it was a treat and a half when Grandpa would go to Saturday, he would go to town. Not every Saturday, but about every other Saturday. And we were in town, so sometimes they'd come by and pick us up. And we'd go to Stanfield's Grocery there in Broken Arrow. And we'd go back there in the back.
Harold was just talking about that the other day.
And we'd go back in the back, he had big old pop cooler, you know, and you'd pull that water, pull that pop up, Grandpa would usually buy you one if you went with
For a
him.
nickel.
And I don't remember how much it was, because I didn't have a clue, because I didn't have any money.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was ice cold, boy, it just, that water was so cold, I mean, ice in there. So, but I can remember that, it was cheap, it was real cheap. It probably a little bit older, younger than that, so it's probably a dime. I don't know what it was. But boy, that was a treat. I liked that, to go to the store. And we'd sit in the back room. It'd be right behind the meat market, you know, the meat counter there. He'd be chopping meat for people.
That pop was the coldest stuff.
Oh, it
Coming
was.
out of one of those boxes.
It was.
With little ice in it.
It
Yeah, part
was.
of the time when you opened it up and the air hit it, get ice
Oh,
to
yeah.
the inside.
It just,
did.
it just chill it down like crazy. Okay.
Those were the days.
They were. Because I just listened to them as they was talking, you know, Grandpa and the owner, Stanfield, he was talking and all this. Of course, I didn't understand any of it. But
We were poor too, but we didn't know it.
yeah, yeah.
You know, I mean, we really were. And even a telephone or a washing machine, but we didn't know we was poor.
Well, Mom lived on the farm. They had a farm. And Grandpa,
Don't miss what you don't have.
before, I found this out doing some of my ancestry. I talked to Jennifer. And when Grandma and Grandpa got married, they didn't have any place to go. Most of the time you went back to her mom's house, usually. That's the way all her kids did. When they got married, they went to the Pence's house. Spend the night till they got enough money to go on. So, but Grandma and Grandpa didn't do that. They lived on the back of Pete Snyder's place down there on 131st.
Yeah, Grandpa.
Yeah, Grandpa Snyder. And I didn't know that. So I thought, well, that's kind of unique. That's kind of, different, because Pence was just right down the road from them. The Pence farm was right there down the road. So, and then I kind of, as I worked through the census a little bit, found out, other people come in and they're all the surrounding areas and where all the relatives, where they moved to when they got, married and moved around. They didn't move too far away. Most of them was pretty close. But anyway, 22, verse 22. And if a man sanctify unto the Lord a field which he hath bought, which is not of the fields of his possessions, then the priest shall reckon unto him the worth of thy estimation, even unto the year of Jubilee, and he shall give thine estimation in that day, as a holy thing unto the Lord. In the year of Jubilee, the field shall return unto him of whom it was bought, even to him whom the possession of the land did belong. And all thy estimation shall be according to the shekel of the sanctuary. And here you go, 20 gerahs. So here's another coinage, makes a shekel. So this may seem a little confusing, but this is some land that a guy bought, but is really leased. Okay, for a particular time. He could make a vow to the Lord for that land too. But at that particular time, he didn't redeem it, but he didn't have it. It wasn't his to redeem. Okay, because it was going back to the original owner when the Jubilee came. So that's what actually happened. But he could, if he wanted to redeem it, he could and still use the land. But the priests, they wouldn't get any of this. He had to own that land actually and not redeem it in order for it to go to the Levites, or to the tribe there. So it says that whatever amount was given, this is the amount that they had offered, so many years for Jubilee. It was given as a holy offering to the Lord, and God regarded the land as truly dedicated to him. Here we go. Gerahs is a unit of weight, which was, according to this verse, 1/20th of a shekel. The gerah was the smallest unit of measurement in the system used at that time, and it's equivalent to about 1/2 gram. Well, that don't tell me a lot. I don't like the metric system, so.
Well, it was just a little over a penny, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's about what it was.
It was 27 cents.
Mm-hmm. So just a little bit, 1.25. When it kind of blew my mind, my dad showed me a mill. The first time I knew a mill. And actually he had one that gave it to me. I said, why don't we have mills today? Well, they made mills evidently to pay the taxes with. Because it was, I don't know how many mills I remember now. Was it 10 mills to make a penny? I don't remember how many it was, but it was a small piece of change. This is smaller than a penny. So.
Well, pennies, they talked about quitting making pennies.
Now,
because it's costing more than a penny to make a penny.
Yep, that's right.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they talked about trying to take them out of circulation. A lot of people, now, if you go to stores, I don't know if you've noticed, they said you want to round up. Because they don't want to pay that 25 cents to you. So they just say, most people don't want it anyway. It's not worth it much. You just round up. And they give that to a charity or something like that. They say. I don't know if they do, but they say they do. Most of the time I don't round up. I say, nope, give me the change. That's mine.
Well, I have told them you can round down.
Yeah.
They're not quick to want to do that.
They don't want to do that. No, they don't want to do that. Oh, 26 and 27, Brother Everson.
Only the firstling of the beast, which should be the Lord's firstling, no man shall sanctify it, whether it be ox or sheep, it is the Lord's. And if it be an unclean beast, then it shall redeem it according to thine estimation, and shall add a fifth part of it thereto. Or if it not be redeemed, then it shall be sold according to thy estimation.
Okay, so the priests could turn around and say, we got too many donkeys, let's sell it. So they sell it and they make money. So it's another option that they can bring up, that they could do that, whatever comes up. But it says the firstlings, those are already gods. You can't vow those. Those are gods. You can't give it. If you want to give another one, or a different one, or an unclean beast, you can do that. You can do the vow. They call it here, sanctify it. And that's a different word, but it's setting it apart for God. It's the same thing. Sanctify is the same thing as vowing a vow.
Well, it'd be like vowing tithes, when that's already the Lord's anyhow.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. 28.
So he couldn't have to redeem that anyway.
No, well, you could, but it's kind of like, why would you do that? You're paying 20% more. I guess if you want to be frugal, not be frugal and just throw your money at them, okay, I'll give you.
And they'll take it.
Yeah, this is 20% more. And I don't know, sometimes, in today's society, people do things to be shown or be known. Just like having their names on buildings, stuff like that. And that's kind of what that would have been at the time. Somebody may say, yeah, I'll redeem that. I'll just add another 20%. It don't matter. No big deal. Everybody goes, wow, he's rich. It's something like that is the way I would see it. Iris, 28 and 29.
Notwithstanding no devoted thing that a man shall devote unto the Lord of all that he hath, both of man and beast, and of the field of his possession, shall be sold or redeemed. Every devoted thing is most holy unto the Lord. None devoted which shall be devoted of men shall be redeemed, but shall surely be put to death.
Okay?
Serious now.
It is. It is. To devote something to the Lord was a further step than consecration by a vow. It often had the meaning of destroying the item or executing the person so that it could not be used anywhere by anyone else, and all of its value was given to God. Therefore, if something was already declared a devoted offering, it could not be given in a vow. It already belonged to God and was most holy to the Lord. Joshua 6 and 7 translates this word devoted with a word that we wouldn't say that, but it's accursed, because that thing devoted to God would now be destroyed, being used for no other purpose. Okay? So it would be almost like giving it as a sacrifice, an additional sacrifice. And this kind of brings back to mind where the one guy vowed a vow when he came back and his daughter came out. And a lot of times we say, oh, well, he must have killed her, He said he was going to offer a sacrifice under this whole chapter saying she could have been redeemed. So it doesn't necessarily say that he killed her. He could have said, hey, I'm going to redeem that vow that I vowed. And it would have been said, okay, that's fine.
It also goes to show you that this is, how seriously it is to make vows to God. I mean, even on your own,
Well, this devoted is almost like bringing back Samuel into the equation. When Hannah took Samuel there, she gave him to God, but she almost devoted him to God. She gave up. I'm not going to be anything. He's yours. You take care of it.
Yeah, there was no intent to ever.
No intent to redeem him, no intent to ever come back. And she had that was a full, even though it was a vow, it was what I would consider devoted. Now the child wasn't, killed, of course, but he was never taken back. It says at the top of page 8, an example of this is found in 1 Samuel 15, where King Saul was commanded to bring God's judgment against the Amalekites. They were devoted and doomed to destruction. Saul failed to do this and greatly displeased the Lord because he didn't wipe out the Amalekites. That's what the prophet came back and said, what's this bleeding that I hear these in my ear? And Saul's like, God, so noble, what is it? He didn't do what God told him to do. 30 through 33, Bertha.
And all that tithe on the land, whether of the seed of the land or of the fruit of the tree, is the Lord's. It is holy unto the Lord. And if a man will at all redeem aught of his tithes, he shall add thereof the fifth part thereof. And concerning the tithe of the land or of the flock, even of whatsoever passeth under the rod, the tenth shall be holy unto the Lord. He shall not search whether or it be good or bad, neither shall he change it. And if he change it at all, then both it and the change thereof shall be holy. It shall not be redeemed.
Okay. Now this is a little different way. The way they did the tithes with their flock, they gave them the firstlings as they came out. But then apparently, and we know this a little later on, we see that every third year they had another tithe that they gave 10%. So they said, okay, let's count the sheep. And they'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Mark that 10th one. That 10th one would go out. 1, 2, 3, 4. So as it passed under the rod, as they counted it, the 10th one was given to the Lord.
no matter what shape it was.
No matter what shape it was. Now, it said, here again, you looked at it, and if it was one of your favorite sheep, you could swap it out. It didn't have to be, those exact ones that it said. But says here, it shall not be redeemed, whatever. So a lot of times we think of, okay, I give $100 for tithes. Now I'm going to redeem it. I'll give you 120. Well, to me, I'm out. You give me 100 back, I give you 120. I'm out $20 more. Why would I do that? Well, with animals, you might say, well, I got to give all this, but I really need 2 more sheep to go along with this over here. So I'm going to redeem those with my cows. I got plenty of cows. So I'm going to redeem those with the cows. Or something like that. When you look at it on that, it makes a little more sense than in our day. We just look at the money most of the time. But
Do you know on the tithe part of that, on the sheep, was that based on the whole herd or just to the newborns, or how did?
I've kind of looked at that, and it says this is the general tithe that they talked about, and I don't know if that's a yearly tithe, everything that come up that year. I kind of think it is. That because there in Deuteronomy, it talks about this, what I consider the second tithe, and it's paid every 3 years, and that went to a different place. That went to the Levites, not the priests, but the Levites, the other parts of the tribe, and the poor. That was kind of that. So it's instead of 10%, it's 3.5% or 3.33% per year. So I kind of think that that's why they did it in a yearly basis, because cattle you buy and sell, and they have critters come up, offspring, they come up, and so you give the first one to God because that may be the first one that they have, but then their years after they make 10 or 15 more, so as you go, you give every 10th one. So I think that's the way, to me, that's the only way you kind of do it. Here again, the way my grandpa did it, whenever he brought in potatoes, he'd bring 2 bucket loads of, 10 bucket loads of potatoes in, he'd give 1 bucket load to the pasture. We had a big bin built at his house, and he dumped that on Brother Stone's driveway, a whole bucket of potatoes down there. Well, with all them boys and girls that he had, they go through potatoes pretty quick, but he had a whole tractor bucket load full of them. He gave them. So.
Well, Brother Jerry, Brother Wynn had made a vow to the Lord that I forget what it was about. He said he'd give up Pepsi.
Mm-hmm.
Brother Wynn never drunk Pepsi after that. It was a joke that he had to have Dr. Pepper.
Oh,
so
yeah.
bring me the Dr. Pepper.
Yeah. And that's some people, and there are, as we go through the Old Testament, there are other vows. We see the Nazarite vow and things like that go about that people, they feel like they want to do something for God, make an effort, and so that it is. That's the way it is. And it's kind of like, okay, if you want to, do as he said, do without Pepsi, or do without X, do without Y, whatever it is. That's something that, okay, that's a lifetime commitment if you're making it. Or
because there's not a redemption for that.
Yeah.
So,
or you can say, I'm going to do this for a year. Or do this for time.
If you stated it that way to begin with.
Yeah.
But once you made the vow, then
you got to keep
a serious situation.
That's right.
That's why there after that, where the guy, pledged to whoever first, it's better vow, not to make a vow than to make a vow and break it.
That's right. That's right. And that's why because God wouldn't look down. I mean, he would look down on human sacrifice. He doesn't. So I think that was just to redeem. People ask that all the time. Well, here it is in Leviticus. See, he could have redeemed them easily. It's no big deal. I mean, if you knew that, then okay, yeah, they just redeem his daughter for whatever it was. But up until that time, then she had to be a virgin all her life, I think it was. That's what happened. But I'm not sure exactly. Okay, in the last verse it says, these are the commandments on 34, page 10. These are the commandments which the Lord commanded Moses for the children of Israel in Mount Sinai. So see, they were still, in the end of Leviticus, they were still at Mount Sinai. They hadn't moved forward with that. And if you want to read, there's several commentary on 9. There's a lot. It talks about giving. It's not an option. Giving is commanded, and it's not an option in 1 Corinthians. Talking about the New Testament, how it compares the New Testament and the Old Testament. So you can go through there and look and see, read through that yourself if you want. And I look back, and we hadn't gone through Matthew, Mark, or Luke. So we're going to start probably on Matthew when I get back. I've been trying to figure out a way.
He's an interesting fellow.
Yeah, I'm going to try to figure a way that we can. We've got another projector. I just got to figure out how to connect it so I can get to the Chosen so we can watch season 3, because it's on the app and we can see that. So cut that off.
Did you ever get that one out